the missile detonated in a field in eastern Poland during the attack. The incident has raised concerns about the war spreading beyond Ukraine's borders. And for more on this, we can speak to Alina Polyakova, President and CEO of the Center for European Policy Analysis. Alina, just with that Russian cruise missile leaving a crater inside Poland, what's the risk now of a regional spillover here?
Well, unfortunately, this most recent incident is not the only one we've seen since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It's become quite a typical event that Russian drones, Russian missile parts, now Russian missiles, and even Russian jets have made significant incursions into NATO airspace in Poland and elsewhere. Just last year, over 20 Russian drones fell on Polish territory as well. And I think what this is telling us is that, Russia's war in Ukraine has expanded to really engulf all of Europe in a shadow war, a war that is perhaps not as kinetic as what we're seeing on the ground in Ukraine, but it is a laying of a foundation, a strategic foundation that the Russians have been engaging in it for the preparation of bigger military action. There's no question about that.
How much of this do you think is sloppy targeting from Moscow versus deliberate to test NATO's red lines?
Well, we never truly know. I mean, certainly we know that Russian operations, military operations are not so precise. Their capabilities are not as sophisticated as those of Western militaries. However, that question doesn't really matter that much because the Russians will use an opportunity, even if it's an accident, to test the result, to test the response. And what we know from previous Russian operations, whether that's in Ukraine or even previously in other contested regions like Transnistria or in Georgia, that they wait and look for the response. And if there is no response, they understand that to mean they can keep pushing further. So I think if there is not a concentrated and cohesive response to these kinds of attacks and incursions on NATO space, we're going to see many more of them in the near future.
Look, for the past few months, we've been talking about how the dial has shifted towards Ukraine in its favor. But over this last few weeks, we've seen constant bombardment from Russia and quite deadly ones. Really, can we say that Ukraine is still winning this?
Well, Ukraine is certainly not losing. If we recall, at the beginning of the war in February 2022, most predictions from analysts and governments said that Ukraine would fall in 3 days. And now we're, almost 5 years into this war at this point. So the fact that Ukraine is holding back the line, Russia is not making really significant territorial gains on the front line. Ukraine is also putting Crimea under deep pressure. We assumed de facto that Russia would always control Crimea, but Ukraine is proving that to not be true. And of course, Ukraine is suffering from these massive Russian attacks exactly because of its success in hitting deep into Russian territory with its quite advanced long-range strike capabilities and AI drone capabilities.
Alina, great to be able to get your insights there. Alina Polyakova, President and CEO of the Center for European Policy Analysis.